Flames fans, it's time for Flames Unfiltered, your spot for Calgary Flames hockey talk. 5-1 start for the Calgary Flames. Things are good in Calgary. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Flames Unfiltered. Episode 139. I am the host of the show, Brad Burud, and Kyle Lewis, the other host of the show, joins us. Kyle, good to have you with us.
Always a pleasure. Good to be back home, back in my usual setting for this.
Yeah, back in the studio. Good.
Yeah.
We did it good, though, last week. It was fun being able to get a hold of you when you were out in Ottawa. And
it was pretty cool. Huh? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Got to roll with the punches once in a while, right?
That's all you can do, right?
It's been a busy week for me. I know you've mentioned that your week's been
it's just nonstop. Yeah, nonstop. But that's good though. I mean, it's it's good to be busy, and it's nice that when we get to talk hockey and watch hockey, it's going as well as it has been.
Yeah, now we can sit back and relax and talk about Flames hockey and how good it really has been. Some weird things this week. I was thinking, we haven't had a fight this year. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by that, actually. I hadn't really thought of it until you said it just now, but yeah, that is kind of strange.
I'm not saying like I'm a guy that like wants like fights all the time, but like I'm surprised that we haven't had fights.
Might be one Saturday, Oilers.
Yeah, I know, but
the first time around, but you never know.
Yeah, I thought maybe there would be the first roll, but not so much. So,
it's strange. Yeah, it's strange. Anyway, we'll see what happens.
I was also thinking this week. I was thinking about this, and then like on Tuesday, I saw a tweet about it too, and then that really got me thinking. Whatever happened, do you think, to that dude that freaking stripped naked and jumped onto the ice?
Oh man, that was like 20 years ago.
I know. I don't know why I thought of it last week.
I bet if I threw it out there on Twitter, we'd track him down.
I wonder what ever happened to him. And like, if he's like, you just wonder what he thinks nowadays, looking back at that.
Oh, it's kind of iconic for some of the wrong reasons, but that was a hell of a fall. It knocked him out. Like, he's lucky to be okay after that.
Oh, another thing I was thinking about this week, and why, like, I don't know why I worry about this with this team or any other Flames team, but I always worry about how the locker room is. Is this a tight group? Is this a tight group? And then I saw a quote from Trevor Lewis this week, and he said that there are some, his quote was, there are some teams you get 3 or 4 guys together and you go out for dinner and that's it. And then with this team, we have to make reservations for 15 to 20 guys.
That's pretty telling. And actually, I remember a few years ago in 2019 in Columbus seeing 4 players out together, nobody else in sight. And one of those players made a comment about a player who wasn't there, probably just as a joke, but they're teammates. I'm sure they were still relatively close, but if that's what Louis is saying, then I think he's onto something for sure.
Yeah. I don't know why I worry about that, but I do. Because I think you always hear about championship teams being so tight, and I don't know if that's just talk after they win a cup together. It's like, well, yeah, we were tight,
Well, any successful workplace the same way,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, anything that's successful usually has a tight-knit group,
Yeah. And I was kind of curious, too, where they didn't name a captain, but I mean, I usually like having a captain like we talked about, but I mean, I kind of appreciate the fact they have so many guys they feel are worthy of wearing an A, so it's nothing to complain about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, we've talked about this numerous times. I think there's so much more made out of it than there really...
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think the media and the press and the fan base makes way more out of it than, obviously more than Daryl Sutter, because his expression is like, what do you talk like? Who cares? Like, why?
Yeah, that's an expression for everything.
I know.
But one thing we're kind of forgetting. Actually, we should throw this out before people unsubscribe for not mentioning this. It's Mika Kiprusoff's birthday.
It is. I saw that this morning.
46. I want to say
46. Yep, 46.
What a legend. When are they going to retire that number, do you think? Like, how much longer do we have to wait?
I don't know. I don't know what they're waiting for that one.
Is there any doubt? I don't think so.
I mean, the only two that I would say that I think that need to be done is that and Fleury. I mean, he was a legend and like an unbelievable hockey player, and Mika Kiprusoff was the same. And I think both those two need to be done within the next couple years. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would
I don't
agree.
know what's taking so long. I don't know.
Well, I think the Fleury thing has to do with his politics, which we're not going to get too much into that on here, but I think that's a big reason why. Kiprusoff, I don't know,
Which is
maybe.
completely unfair. Which is completely unfair.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah, now you got to separate those things. Kiprusoff, I mean, maybe it's because Iginla's was just done in 2019. Maybe they, want to give it a little bit more time before they go ahead and retire another number. I don't think there's any doubt they're going to do it, but it's
they maybe can't find Kiprusoff. He's he's probably off fishing somewhere, not answering.
He's fishing somewhere, smoking a lot of cigarettes, just being himself.
Yeah.
So I guess there's the answer, Brad. There's the answer. They'll retire it as soon as they locate him.
Yeah. Another thing that was weird this week and very unfortunate is Rick Ball not doing the play-by-play. And I understand he's dealing with some medical condition. And man, I hope everything goes good, and I hope he heals up, because as one of those things this week, it's like, man, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And when I wasn't able to listen to him, and that's not a knock on Hunter Ryan Singh, I think he does a really good job, but it just, you get used to it. You get really used to it. And I miss not having him behind the mic calling play-by-play this week. So
yeah, I think we all did. So having Peter Labardius around is nice too. Peter Labardius is, he did Flames games in like the early 2010s, and I always enjoyed him in some of his calls. But like Rick Ball is so underrated, and Rick Ball and Kelly Rudy is like music to my ears.
And I love Kelly Rudy too. I really, really like.
Have you read his book?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, really good. Very compelling read. Really enjoyed that. Yeah.
I think what it is, and I was trying to explain this to one of the guys I work with. How when you do play-by-play is like probably the hardest job. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is
so hard to be good at that. And it sounds dumb to even say this, but he's kind of a calming, relaxing. There's a lot of flow the way he does it. And it just, I don't know. It just makes a broadcast really, really good.
Well, and when he's almost like a vocalist, right? Like in a band that you like. He hits the high notes, you take notice, because he doesn't do it all the time. So I think about like when Tkachuk scored the between the legs goal, Rick Ball's call, and that was legendary. Yeah. My favorite one he's ever done to date was the Mangiapane Game 5 goal. Somehow even better than his Gaudreau call in Game 7. But the Mangiapane Game 5 goal, when Mangiapane took that pass from Backlund and just ripped the shot past Ottinger, like I still get chills when I listen to that, and I've heard it probably 100 times since it happened. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Rick Balls, and obviously wish him a speedy recovery, and can't wait to hear him back.
Yeah, me too. Today on the show, we're going to recap the 3 home games since last week, and then we'll roll into some Flames news, talk a little retro jerseys, touch on Lucic milestone, Kadri's milestone as well, and the arena progress that we got this week. And then we're going to talk about how the first line's doing. Kyle and I will give our take on is it struggles or is it not struggles? And we're going to talk about that. Vladar resigns. We'll talk about a crowded crease in Calgary, and we'll preview the 2 games this week as a quiet week for the Calgary Flames. And it's kind of weird, but it is what it is. The schedule is what it is, and we'll see how this week goes. But thanks for joining us on another edition of Flames Unfiltered. All right, Kyle, let's talk game recaps. Buffalo comes to town, and to me, and I looked at this one as the easy check mark on the homestand.
Yep, I think a lot of people would have, unfortunately.
It wasn't. Buffalo beats Edmonton and then beats us on the second night of a back-to-back, and it just did start good for Calgary. It just did not.
No, I watched that game when I was in Ottawa. The whole game was a mess. Just start to finish, just weren't ready to play, which is really cliche, but evident by how the game went. And got to give credit to Buffalo too. Buffalo is finally seemingly putting the pieces together in a pretty competitive team.
They quieted me. On one of the other podcasts I do, I kind of ripped Buffalo in the offseason this year for just stupid decision making. And I don't know, just the way that organization has been in the last 10 years is just
That's entirely fair.
It's a head shaker. It is a head shaker.
That
And
ownership is the best.
I want Buffalo to be good. Have you ever been to a game in Buffalo?
I have not.
Their fan base is great.
I have actually a really good friend of mine who she's a Sabres fan, and she's a great follow on Twitter, but she's just a great person, a very, very passionate fan.
They love their hockey, and they support their team when they're good and when they're bad. And I love that about Buffalo, and I have a lot of respect for Buffalo, but I ripped them a lot because, and rightfully so probably, but they impressed me as I think they got a lot of good things going. Tage Thompson looked really, really good.
Yeah, Alex Tuchka, Buffalo kid, fits right in there. I mean, he made that Eichel trade look pretty not bad from a Sabres perspective.
Flames fall 6-3 in that one, and two nights later, Saturday night, Carolina comes to town, and a definite Stanley Cup contender. A great matchup. A lot of people said this is maybe a Stanley Cup preview. We are maybe a little getting ahead of ourselves there, but maybe. And this night started with Carolina getting 2 right away. Markstrom let in the first shot again, and things didn't look good at all, but Edm Cgy got it to 2-1 after 1, and then Brett Ritchie scores a goofy. I don't even know how to describe that goal, but
you see a couple of those a year, though, right on the goal line.
Yep. It worked, and we're tied, and then Tyler Toffoli scores the game winner in overtime. And all in all, a great night. Rasmus Andersson, super, super good that night. 27 minutes plus on the ice. And he's this was one game where I'm like, yeah, he's really maturing into a top-end defenseman.
Yeah, I think Sutter echoed those comments yesterday, maybe post-game, because he was excellent against Pittsburgh as well.
Let's talk about that one. That was last night as Pittsburgh comes to the Saddle Dome, and Calgary jumps right on him right away. I think shots after 1 were 20-4.
It was a lot, yeah. I was actually playing hockey, and I got home shortly after the first. I looked at the stats on my phone, like, wow.
Dude, you didn't jinx us. You was turning it on in the second period, and things kind of went off the tracks in the second period.
Yeah, it's midway through the second before I got on. Anyway,
some good things. Kadri gets 2, and Huberdeau gets his first on the power play. I thought Malkin looked really good for Pittsburgh.
Yes, he did for sure. Yeah, very, very good. I watched actually the piece I missed this morning, and he's still so good. He's getting a little bit older, but he's just fantastic.
Was Crosby just like a disappearing act last night?
He wasn't really noticeable. I wouldn't say he was bad, but I mean, he's just very pedestrian game from him, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too, and that's rare.
Yeah, isn't it though?
Yeah,
but like Edm Cgy, like how do you like unbelievable his start to the season, like unbelievable.
It is. It's crazy, and we can talk about it right now. But he's a 6-game point streak. I mean, he's just absolutely tearing it up.
Well, he's flying out there. I mean, he's end to end. He's dragging his teammates into the fight. He's driving the net. Like he's just everywhere on the ice. It's awesome to see.
And I knew Edm Cgy was a fast skater. I did not expect to see him to be as fast as he is.
I didn't think his wheels were that good either. I knew he was fairly quick. I'd heard that a few times, but I am really blown away by how quick he really is. I agree with you 100%.
He's got 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points in his first 6 games with the team. His shooting percentage is 19%. And now I don't believe this is sustainable, and if this is, he's going to have one hell of a year. But yeah, and the heart and everything that goes along with it. But
yeah,
I mean, what a start though! And that line, and I know you tweeted about it last night, or maybe I tweeted about it. That line is just absolutely buzzing, and it's fun to see. Yeah. Are you waiting for Dubé to just break out?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I indicated that, in a couple of our prior conversations, and I picked him as my breakout player this season. And it's, you can see it because he's all around the net. He had a great chance last night in front. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. It's funny to me though, talking about this now that we're kind of in the guts of it, like the 2 best lines on the team are the second and the fourth. That fourth line is just been really, really good. And I don't know how sustainable that is as the season wears on because, the style of play and all that. But, man, they've been good. And I was never a Brett Ritchie fan, but all three of them, Lucic, Rooney, and Ritchie, have been awesome.
Well, let's talk about these lines, and we can kind of skip around here. And, that line, I'm just looking at goals for per lines, right? Right now, the Lucic, Rooney, Ritchie line has 3 goals. Majapani, Kadri, Dubé, those are okay. Yeah, goals 4. But you look at the Huberdeau, Lindholm, Toffoli line; they're yet to score an even strength goal.
Yeah, and that's a lot of talk. Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but I mean, you're seeing a lot being said about it in terms of being patient, and I think that's really important. I mean, let's talk about Lindholm for a second. So Lindholm is an absolute stud of a hockey player, one of the best two-way players in the league. He has 2 brand new line mates. That can't be an easy adjustment at all. So I think that's going to take some time. Huberdeau is new to the team. Toffoli's probably been about what I expected him to be. He's fitting in pretty good. Hasn't, blown the doors off for him. It's been quite good, but I think it's going to take a little more time for that line to get going. But the thing is now you kind of need it to get going because even if it takes longer, how do you disrupt how good that second line, that third line, that fourth line have been?
But Toffoli's got 5 points on the year. I know. I'm pretty sure though 3 of them came on the power play, but actually, yeah. I don't know. I'm actually not too worried about Toffoli. And that was like, when I looked at this first line, I thought that was going to be our I don't want to say weak spot, but maybe an area of concern when it came to the first line.
Yeah. I mean, I had some reservations about it too, but I agree with you in terms of what you just said about Toffoli. Like, of the 3, he's the one he's doing exactly what I thought he would do. He's been pretty damn good and consistent.
Do you think it's unfair for Huberdeau to be getting heat right now? I guess he's not really getting a lot of heat, but I mean a little bit.
Yeah, I do actually, and I say that largely because if you actually watch the games, like he's doing all the Huberdeau things that he did in Florida. There's not all coming together yet. Like, say his board play is just insane. He might be the best player in the league along the boards in terms of turning nothing into something or getting away with the puck. His hockey sense is just off the charts. But I mean, it takes time. Like, even the goal he scored last night wasn't anything beautiful.
No, it was actually a low percentage shot, really.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised it went in, but I think it's great. I think that's what he needed to kind of get maybe the points will start to come now. But he's an elite talent. For all the comparisons between him and Gaudreau, they're both elite talents, but they're very different players. And I think that's one of the reasons maybe why Lindholm is a little bit slower to the gate too, is that the guy that drives the line is extremely good, much like Gaudreau is. It's just he's a different type of player.
I kind of laugh when I do see, and you said it. If you're really watching the game, you're not going to be all over Huberdeau. I think it's funny. We can be 5-1, and some fans, and I'm not kind of I'll include myself to a point. Are looking for problems, which is silly.
Yep. Well, that's what we do. I mean, to a point, right? That's fandom.
I look at what Huberdeau has brought, and I sit and dream, and I think, what happens when this first line gets going? We're 5-1, and our first line struggling.
Yeah, at even strength. Yeah.
At even strength, yeah. Power plays been,
because I want to point that out. I tweeted that last night. Both power play units look fantastic. Look really, really good. And I wouldn't have drawn them up quite like they are, but I guess I would have been wrong because they've been great. So to answer your question, I think when that line gets going, just because hockey is hockey, another line might go cold. I can't say it being the second line because Kadri is just on an absolute tear. Maybe the third goes a few games without a point or something.
What do we, it's an interesting question when you talk about the third line. And you talk about Backlund aren't they not playing their role exactly like you'd want them to play?
Yeah, 100%. There's actually an article on Flames Nation, I think it was today, about how Backlund is perfect as a third line center. And the guys that write for that site have been saying that for years, and I think most of us can agree. Backlund was a little bit miscast as a second line center. But as a third line center, find me a better one.
I found it interesting. they talked about it on the broadcast last night about how Backlund said that had they brought in Kadri like 5 years ago, he would have been I don't worried about it maybe or threatened to buy it. Because he said
I
he
can't
wasn't
remember the wording, but yeah,
it wasn't as mature and as he is now, and he says the focus of this group is just so much on winning and not how we're winning, but just that we are winning.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really like great to hear for one, but it also just shows that how this puzzle's been put together is just really, really strong.
Yeah, so let's suppose that the Brody Kadri trade happened 3 years ago, whenever it was proposed. Yeah, like and the only reason it didn't is because Edm Cgy didn't want to leave Toronto. He said that, right? But yeah, Backlund probably, he would have not maybe been happy about it. But I mean, there's another thing too. I guess I'll talk about just because we're on that line. Backlund's been fantastic. Coleman has been really good too, I think. But I'm seeing a fair bit of not hate, but a lot of questions and a couple criticisms about Trevor Lewis. And I don't have an issue with how Trevor Lewis has played. He's good along the boards. He's involved in the play. I mean, is he ideal as a third line right wing? I don't think so. But has he been bad? Not that I've seen.
I don't have a problem with him at all on the third line. I think we'll probably add somebody to the right side and he'll shuffle down to the fourth line, but I don't even know how you do that now because how are you going to move Richie out? And I feel like Lewis has been fine. I mean, he does everything we want, right? I mean, he is an epitome of a two-way player, and that's what that line is designed to do, is to shut down.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they're doing. And I don't know. I love the way the lines are put together right now, and I really hope that that patience, and I believe it will be. I hope that patience is used, and that. I mean, you said it best a little bit ago. Each line's going to cycle in when they're clicking.
That's depth, and that's how you win. So, and actually, I just realized I kind of cut you off earlier. I heard the name Stone, so we got to point that out. Michael Stone scored again in the Pittsburgh
He did.
game.
He scored his second of the year. And
what do you like at this point? It's all, and somebody tweeted this, and it's kind of funny to think this would ever be a discussion. But it's like whenever Shillington returns, which at some point this season we believe he will. I'm not saying Stone's elite defensively because he certainly isn't, but man, he's been good.
You can't take Stone out of the lineup right now.
But how has this ever happened in the history of the NHL that a player just plummets down your depth chart and goes to league minimum deals on the eve of the season, like almost 3 years in a row or whatever it's been, and now he's somehow scraped his way back to being a regular and score points.
And you may have to refresh my memory, but why did he plummet? Did he plummet because he wasn't being played correctly, or because he was first off, he was dealing with blood clots for an entire season?
Yeah. That was the biggest reason when he was acquired. You can look it up on YouTube, actually. So when he was in Arizona, I want to say tore his ACL, but you can see a video of the injury in a game against the Flyers. And that injury for a hockey player basically means you're going to lose some foot speed. So Calgary brought him in 2017 at the trade deadline.
We went on a 9-game winning streak, I believe.
Yeah. So they brought him in for that playoffs for a run. I remember he had a pretty big goal against the Ducks. The Flames got swept and they shouldn't have, but the goaltending was terrible. He signs a 3-year extension that summer for $3 million and change, like a pretty good contract. And then he had the blood clot, I think, the following season. So he ends up getting bought out. After he's bought out, he gets brought back on a league minimum deal, which was
really super smart on Treliving's part, because he was able to bury some cap space, bring him back, and save the team money.
Yeah, well, and you couldn't do that before. Like when the buyout window first was introduced, I remember how did that work? It was Vinny Lecavalier. Might have been the Lightning, but wherever he was, I think it was the Lightning. They bought him out with the intent to re-sign him, and they weren't allowed to.
I can't remember. I remember hearing at some point how the Flames were allowed to do that, because I didn't think they were going to be allowed to do it either. But I can't remember what the justification was. But
Well, maybe it's just allowed now. I don't know the details either, but it's just
That to me seems like that's something that Vegas would already be doing.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to maybe do a little research on that. But I remember there was some, I don't know, there was a reason why it was allowed to happen.
And now I'm thinking about all these ridiculous things that happen with the NHL and GMs and teams not knowing the rules of their own positions, right?
How about the offer sheet on Riley?
Ryan O'Reilly. I was thinking of that. So Jay Feaster looked like an absolute clown in that instance. The Ilya Kovalchuk cap circumvention. Yeah. That was a bad one. Like I said, Lecavalier being bought out. It's like, oh, what do you mean we can't re-sign him? Or the Flames 22 years ago when they reacquired Dean McAmmond in the same season, he wasn't allowed to play. Because at the time, you couldn't be traded back to the same team in the season.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, he got traded back to, he was part of the, let me think now. He was packaged, I think, it was to Colorado in the Chris Drury trade, maybe. And then at the end of that same season, because McAmmond was a great fit with Connor and Iginla, they reacquired him, and the league made him sit out the rest of the season because you were not allowed to rejoin the same team in one season. I don't know why the rule ever existed, but again, like, there's so many examples of stupidity, when it comes to managing an NHL franchise. And I don't know, just this conversation we're having just now made me think of a bunch of them, and it's just hilarious to me. But anyway, back to Michael Stone. I don't know of another story where a guy has just redeemed himself to this point. Like, you can talk about a guy like Eric Stahl, who kind of resurrected his career. He fell off a map, then became like a 60-point player again. But Michael Stone was like, you're pretty much out of the NHL. You tore your ACL. You had a blood clot. Like, you're done, bud. And it's like, actually, no, you're not. And I think, Daryl Sutter gets a lot of credit for that. But this guy had to fight and claw to get his way back into the lineup. And it's such a good feel-good story. Like, it's so cool.
He has to play now, too, with so much uncertainty.
In what sense?
Well, every year he's literally playing for, you know what I mean? Like he's
that's where I thought you were going. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, like I try to put myself in these players' shoes, and a lot of times you'll see your players just fall off the earth after they sign a big contract and stuff. And you look at like Michael Stone, it's like, well, this guy literally is playing for his salary every single night he's out there.
And you know what? We talk about him so much more than any other Flames podcast, editorial, you name it. I bet that guy will wear a Flames Unfiltered hat for us because we're constantly pumping his tires.
We do talk about him. We are probably as big. We gotta send him a hat.
We really do.
We do. We're both really pro Stone. Is he the best Stone in the league right now?
In my heart, yes.
All right, now we got to move on. Milan Lucic plays his 1100th game, just the 77th player to do so with at least one penalty minute per game. The 212th player all time to do that. Lucic, what's going to happen with Lucic? Is he going to be able to hold his own all year? Because I think so far he hasn't looked too bad.
He's been very physical. Actually, more so than I might have even thought this early in the season. The same as I said last season. I still like to see him rotate out now and again down the stretch just to get him some rest. But yeah, he's been good. He really has. And I think he's going to be an important player down the stretch. So really good start to the season. I thought he was going to score last night. He was looking 5-hole again like he likes to do. I was really hoping he would. I think he picked up a helper. Might have been Carolina. And he had an assist in the past week anyway. He's been good. Unremarkable, but good.
Reverse retro jerseys. I know we can't go without talking about this, and because I knew right when it was released, you would send me a message, and I happened to be on the golf course as soon as that was released.
Yes, that's right.
I didn't get to see it right away, but I want to hear your thoughts first on the reverse retro jersey.
My first Flames jersey was a pedestal jersey, so I have a bit of a soft spot for it. Yep. But
the white or the blue, or white or the red?
The white.
The white one.
Actually, it's still in the closet next to me. Yeah, it's pretty well tattered at this point. I mean, it's old as can be, but as a lot of fans have said, it's synonymous with the worst era in Flames history, like bar none.
Yes, but for us, it's probably got a soft spot because that's when, I really started watching in 85, but a lot of the years I really started really seriously following the team was when they used the pedestal jerseys. So it has a
Yeah,
soft spot.
94, 95 until the 2000 end of 2001. Yeah, 01, 02 is when they went to Blasty and the white with Blasty in the shoulders. Anyway, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I do love actually the lettering on it. I always thought that was really well done. But there's actually a really cool story behind it. So for anybody who hates that jersey, Cami Kepke, who actually used to live here in Moncton as a news anchor, she's in Calgary now. She did a story on the origins of the pedestal jersey, and it's on her Twitter account, and I really recommend you read it. Talks about the guy that designed it and why he designed it that way, and it kind of gives you a new appreciation for it. So, will I be getting one? I will, because it's
You will,
cool.
huh?
And we'll be around. Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to try to get Trevor Lewis's game worn, of course.
Oh, you got to get a stone one, man.
If I can, I will. Sure. Well, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't hate it as much as I thought I would. I actually like it.
Wow.
I'm so old school. I am. I'm so old school. You know what I don't like about it? I hated that era where every team had to have a black jersey.
I hear that a lot. And that was a big thing in the 90s.
It was crazy. Every team had a black jersey when the Sharks changed. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you had the freaking most popular jersey in the National Hockey League with that teal color, and now you're wearing black. Like, what are you doing?
Marketing, just pumping out as many things as they can, right? But I agree. It suits certain teams and it doesn't suit other teams at all.
Quite honestly,
some of the reverse retros, some of them are way worse than Calgary's. Way worse.
Oh yes. You know what? Honestly, I would have just been pumped if they would have just came out and said, we're going to wear the pedestal jerseys for 4 games, just exactly the way they were.
Isn't it 4 consecutive games in December and that's it?
It's the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 14th.
Well, if that's not 4 consecutive, it's pretty damn close based on the dates you just rattled off. But that's really strange to me. And then that's it.
At home. I believe it's 4 in a row at home.
Yeah, because you got home, you got away, you got Blasty as your alternate.
Were they wearing those 7 times?
7 or 8, yeah. Because we talked about that against a bunch of former star players to the Flames, which I still find strange. And then 4 for the pedestal. But I would have thought they'd spread that out, and they haven't at all. So in the new year, like it's not even a jersey for the 2022-23 season.
Okay, here, listen. I come up with an idea, maybe. Look at the dates. The 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 14th.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas gift?
Oh, it's got to be. Absolutely. But not wearing it all in 2023?
I think that's stupid.
Well, it's just weird. You know? It's like, oh yeah, they wore it for the 22-23 season. Yeah, for that season, but they never wore it once in 23. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. Maybe I'm over.
I'm with you.
I overthink everything, so probably overthinking that too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to find problems with the team that's 5-1.
I did laugh when you text me and you're like, I got a feeling you're not going to like it.
Yeah, I feel like we know each other pretty good at this point. And it wasn't even the black. It was just, this isn't Brad's kind of jersey.
I actually like it better than the Blasty.
Oh, of course you do. You hate Blasty.
I don't like Blasty.
I say hate, then you say, no, I don't hate it. Just don't like it.
No, I do hate it. I hate that logo. I hate that. When I was a kid, I thought it was a dragon. Oh no, it doesn't. Instance window horses blow fire out their nose, and I don't know. I just don't like it.
There's some people who are going to rip on us that love Blasty, so we should probably just move on.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the arena. They can't rip on us for that. But good things start. The negotiations have started back up. It sounds good. Yep. City officials seem more positive about it. Team officials seem more positive about it. And now the government has stepped in too with some, not necessarily financial aid, but maybe help along the way. Well,
Danielle Smith was very adamant about what she wants to see there, so which is not a tone we've heard much from previous governments. So, it's got to happen. I mean, it has to happen. We've talked about the side a little before, and it's served its time, right? So,
it served its time and did some overtime.
Yeah, big time. So I don't know. There's nothing concrete yet, but everybody's saying all the right things. So I'm hopeful it actually gets done this time around.
I think it will. I really, really do this time. I don't know. My gut tells me different this time. So,
well, it's different too. I mean, now in a market like Calgary, like they can't. That NHL team's not going anywhere. It's so ingrained in that city, and the best thing that ever happened to Winnipeg was getting the Jets back, and what that's done for corporate sponsorships and all kinds of things. So I think all the talk a couple of years ago, whenever, but the Flames potentially moving, I think that's all dead. So I think in the arena, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
I saw, I can't remember who said it. It wasn't Brian Burke, but it was during that time when Burke was here. They said if the Flames moved to Houston, there would be about 25 other teams that would want to move to Calgary.
I never heard that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Because the fan base here is so strong that there's that many teams that would be like, we'd be better off financially in Calgary than we are in,
Well, why do you think the Flames moved from Atlanta to Calgary? I know it was 1980, but it's truer now than it was then.
Yeah. Dan Vladar signs a contract extension with the team, 2 years, 2.2 per year. Your original thoughts when you heard the news of this one?
No brainer. It's a cheap contract. He's a fantastic goaltender. Turns him into a valuable trade chip in a couple of years, or might mean Dustin Wolf becomes a trade chip if you want to package an A-list prospect for something. It just gives the team all kinds of different options. Did you hear what Dan Vladar's quote was about this? I heard something. He's basically like, they didn't really discuss it. They just threw it at him. He's like, yep, done.
He said that Treliving reached out to him and he said, I just asked how long and how much. I heard the numbers and I was like, yeah, there's nothing to discuss here.
Yeah. How cool is that?
Oh, I guarantee you, I always rip on the NBA, but you don't hear that in the NBA.
No, you don't. You don't hear it in most.
In any other sport. No, you don't. Yeah, I was super happy. And what it does, I think, is it gives us, well, and not just, he's not going to be any better now because he's signed, but Dan Vladar and Markstrom are such a strong pairing and relieves so much stress because, God forbid Markstrom gets hurt. But if he did, would you be in full panic mode?
No.
I wouldn't either. Would you have been in full panic mode last year at the beginning of the year, not knowing how Vladar was going to do?
I knew he was good from his time in Boston, so panic's a stretch, but I would have been concerned for sure. At this point, I mean, obviously I don't want to see anything happen to Markstrom, but I have all the faith in the world in Dan Vladar because he's never given us any reason to believe otherwise.
I think he's
and that leads to a discussion about what Daryl Sutter said about wanting to get him a start a week. If he does that, and we've talked about this, I think that would be fantastic. And it also begs the question of, look who is coming to town on Saturday. Do you start him against the Oilers again? And to be honest, what's that?
If you're going to stick to the once a week, you have to, don't you?
You do, or do you break that rule for 1 week because this talk that not starting Markstrom against the Oilers is like, they're afraid to play him against the Oilers. So it's just conjecture and bullshit at the end of the day. So I don't think there's really a wrong call. But
who would you say?
I'd probably go Markstrom, largely because I think you need to dispel that talk, just even internally, like for Markstrom's own, feeling between the years. But more so because Markstrom was excellent in the second half of the game against Carolina, and he was excellent against Pittsburgh, especially in the second period. I think Markstrom's proven the last 2 games, and it's only 2 games, but prior to that, it was only 4 games. Like he's turning that corner, and there's no better way to keep the momentum going than to put him in against the Oilers.
He's allowed the first shot in 3 games. A problem that we didn't have last year because it seemed like the Flames scored first in almost every game last year, which made the year go a lot smoother. But Markstrom did not look. I honestly, I didn't feel Markstrom look normal till last night. I thought he looked good last night.
Yeah, I think he started to come around, like I said, in the Carolina game. But last night, he looked like the Markstrom that we've come to, because we had a 3-0 lead until Malkin scored.
Yeah.
He looked a lot more like himself, and I think at this point, based on how it's gone from so far, if you start Vladar against Edmonton, you're kind of taking the reins from Markstrom at a time when he really needs to get that game under his belt, and then I think you go to the 1 game a week start for Vladar.
especially too because I think we only play 2 games in 9 days.
That's the other thing, and that's a really good point that you make because November is going to be a very busy month for the Flames. October hasn't been. I mean, it's a little bit. Even doing the show with you, it's kind of odd because it's like stops and starts. Right? We don't have a ton of hockey to talk about. Fortunately, there's the arena talk, there's Vladar's contract, there's lots to talk about, but the actual games, we're not in the thick of it yet. So that's where those starts become really important.
We only have 2 to talk about next week because it's a quiet week. And
yeah,
another thing, when I was looking at this goalie things and going over what we were going to talk about tonight, I sat and we had made the discussion about like it's hard to find things to critique, but I keep flipping it over and I say, okay, we have 2 goaltenders. Vladar is currently at a .896 save percentage, and Markstrom is at a .907, and we're 5-1.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
That's crazy. We're complaining about Markstrom, yet he has not lost a game this year.
Yep.
It's all.
But that's a weird stat because he did get pulled once.
He did, and I wondered about that. I'm like, well, how did he not take the loss in that one?
That's just the way it is. It's the goaltender that finishes the game that takes the win or the loss, right? I mean, and I guess the way to look at it is if Vladar comes in and they come back and win that game, Markstrom's not going to get the win, right?
Nor should he. But look at this. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting conversation though on how that should be.
Yeah, it is for sure.
That's out because Vladar didn't lose that game. Markstrom lost that game.
Exactly. Yeah. Awful. So you can look at it either way. The other thing about the goaltenders too is like the sample size is very small. So another 30 save performance from other guy and right back up over 900. Looks like a normal stat line for one of those guys.
Yep, it does. Now I know a lot of people in the market are, clamoring for Dustin Wolf, and when the Vladar signing went down, I thought it was a positive, and I still think that Wolf will have his time. Will it be in Calgary? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't know either. I think it certainly could be.
I do too.
The Wranglers have not been very good to start the season.
His save percentage right now is 0.89. 0.89. It just actually went up. It actually just went up.
Yeah, I think he'll start to rebound a bit, but again, I think it's just about flexibility and options. So, if depending on how much longer he can play in the AHL, and I think because of his trajectory, you probably just have this season, then you kind of have to at least start getting him some reps in the NHL. The Vladar contract just gives you flexibility. Just because Dan Vladar signed a 2-year deal, which 2 years is only 2 seasons, doesn't mean Dustin Wolf's out the door. Doesn't mean Markstrom's going to be traded in a year or two. Like it doesn't imply anything. It just gives the team options.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I mean, we sit and worry about, we talk about this like it's a bad thing. I mean, for once we have goaltender depth. I mean, look at how many years since Kiprasov we went with.
Oh man, that's a drinking game. Goaltenders.
We would, and now we have I think we have probably a top 5 pairing in the NHL and we have a top 5 pairing in the AHL, and we should be thanking our lucky stars for that.
Yeah. So I wouldn't, fans that are worried about what it means for another goaltender in the organization doesn't mean anything right now. It means there's depth at the position, and it means there's options if the trade deadline, you think you could actually win a cup and, take a swing at the fences, or it means if you have to go through a rebuild in a couple of years, well, you're not going to be screwed at the goaltender position because the guy that you might have training, there's 2 good guys behind him. Like, it's a great move. Now, if they'd signed Vladar to like a 5-year deal, well, it's a lot of term tied up in a couple of goaltenders, right? So it makes all the sense in the world.
And I think it makes sense for Vladar too, in the fact that in 2 years he can keep proving himself and earn a big contract.
I think he's going to be a starter somewhere. I mean, I used to feel that way about David Rittich too, but I mean, he's still turned into a pretty decent goaltender and seems to be fitting in well at Winnipeg. So
a lot of people in Winnipeg would buy him a bus ticket right now.
Yeah, I could be patient with him though. He's an emotional guy, but when he gets on a roll, I think he can spell Hellebuck a fair bit with that team, who's actually been a little better than a lot of people had anticipated. But with Vladar, I suspect he'll end up starting somewhere. I'd be surprised if after the 2 years he stays in Calgary unless something else changes drastically.
What an asset we have there, though, right? I mean, this is good. These are all good things. So
Tree Living's asset management since Gaudreau left, like you can't complain about any of it.
When does Tree Living get a contract?
I think it depends on how this year goes.
It's freaking save the day. Like, holy cow.
Yeah. On paper, yeah, and the team looks really, really good. But I mean, if they faceplant again, like maybe they make a change for the sake of making a change, right?
Yeah, true. A lot to see.
Yeah, I still think they'll get an extension, but I think they're not going to just throw one out there because of a 5-1 start. Now, if we're 35-10, they'll probably get an extension.
All right, let's preview the games this week. Get all your Flames Unfiltered podcasts, team news, team updates, and highlights at flamesunfiltered.com. Saturday night, round 2 of the Battle of Alberta as the Edmonton Oilers come to town. And second of 3 meetings this year. I know we've talked about that and how neither one of us like that. Calgary did win the first one in Edmonton 4-3, and their final meeting will be December 27th in Calgary. The Battle of Alberta will be done before the new year.
Ah, man, that pisses me off so much. It's so stupid. Exactly. It's done before the new year. After, a decent playoff series last year that probably should have gone a little longer, but it was what it was. Yeah. But a playoff series that we waited 30 years for to see again.
Yep.
So we get that. So you would think the guys doing the NHL schedule to have the brains enough to say, okay, we finally get it back. The same division, obviously. So why the hell are the Flames playing the Oilers 3 times if they're going to play, I think, the Golden Knights 4 times?
I was driving today, and so I was thinking about this exact thing. And I thought,
were you as pissed off as I was thinking about it?
It is frustrating. I think
it's late here, and I'm wide awake now talking about it.
Well, yeah. One of the things that I don't understand is like this league built the divisions and built the playoff system for rivalries. But then when they created the schedule, they went against rivalries.
Yeah.
Like I am fine with the Eastern Conference. We play them 1 at home, 1 away. Boom.
That's how it should be, because if you remember, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, they'd play the Oilers like 8 times. They might play the Leafs once.
Yep.
And maybe in Toronto.
So we play flip-flop that. We should play everybody in our division 5 times. And we should play everybody in the Central Division 3 times.
Yeah. But even if they stick to the format, why would the Flames play another team in the division more than the Oilers?
It should be the same. You should play every team in the same division the same amount.
Yeah. But since it's not like that, of all the teams they would end up playing more under the current system, how could it not be Edmonton?
Well, we might be a blessing because we might get – I haven't looked at the schedule close enough to see how many times we play San Jose.
Oh, yeah, sure. But never mind the standings or how good it is for the current rendition of the team. As a hockey fan, as a fan of the Battle of Alberta, it makes – no goddamn sense whatsoever.
None. Television rating wise, it's crazy. But
and like you said, the fact that it's done by the 27th, no Battle of Alberta in the new year, so they have to meet in the playoffs to play each other again. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to look here. No, they don't wear the reverse retro against Edmonton. Thank goodness. Edmonton kind of has a busy week though. They play in St. Louis tonight. They play in Chicago tomorrow night. And then in Calgary on Saturday night. And McDavid got hurt the other night against Pittsburgh. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out this week.
Yeah, well, those are some tough games too. Chicago's young team, but getting them on the second half of back-to-back. St. Louis obviously is quite good. So, it's going to be really interesting. That should be a win for Calgary, but I don't know that I have for some reason I have a feeling that it could be like a 5-1 start. I feel like that could be a bit of a letdown game. I hope I'm wrong.
Saturday night's going to be a big tilt, I think. Then Tuesday, Seattle, and we just feel like we just are playing every game at home this year. But Seattle comes to town on Tuesday for the first of 3 meetings this year, and this one scares me more about a letdown game than the Edmonton Oilers game does.
Yep, understandably. Easy team to overlook. I mean, they always say you shouldn't overlook anybody. It's the NHL. Granted, but it happens. So
It does. It does happen. And I don't know what to make of this Seattle team. I don't think they're very good, but when I have watched them this year, they haven't looked that bad.
No. And it's always concerning when you're knocking off Colorado, Edmonton, Pittsburgh. Then you have a team like Seattle come to town. Those are the ones that you should win, but for some reason never seem to.
I know. It's I don't know. And I hate, we can complain about the schedule and how we're front end loaded on home games and stuff, and it is what it is. But this is, you look at the quality teams we played out of the gate, and now we're at home the whole time. This is an interesting schedule this year. I would much rather I think last year we were real heavy out of the gate on the road, if I remember correctly, and did very well in those games. And the whole year it was almost like, hey, I believe we were out of the Eastern time zone by mid to late January last year.
Yep. I think you're
right. I think that helped. I think that helped. We went out there and we made hay while we were out there, and down the stretch we were at home a lot. And I can't remember if it's January or February, but I know there's one of those months where we are on the road like virtually the whole month, and that'll place some stress on this team, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
Yeah, and that's also why it's so important to bank these points early in the season when you have a big homestand, right? This 5-1 start versus what's going on in Vancouver, man, that's going to be important. We're going to look back at those games, and especially if what you're saying about, the Eastern road trips and being on the road for pretty well a month, very telling.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I'm really looking forward to Saturday night's Battle of Alberta. I think that's going to be a giant tilt, and should be a good one. And then we're going to get to watch some other teams this week, because we won't be able to watch Calgary every single night. So
exactly.
I don't know, but it's a good time to be a Flames fan. We're 5-1, and a lot of positives and a lot of good things going on. And Kyle and I are back next week to talk more Flames stuff. I'm sure that in these two games, we'll still find a lot to talk about. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, get on over to YouTube. FlamesUnfiltered.com has every episode and all kinds of different Flames news. I invite you to check that out. And of course, catch up with Kyle and I on Twitter. We always like talking during the games. So have a good week, Flames fans, and we'll catch up again next week. Get connected. Flames Unfiltered can be found on Twitter at Flame Unfiltered. Check out the Facebook page at Flames Unfiltered. Host Brad Burud is on Twitter at Brad Burud, and host Kyle Lewis is on Twitter at VanLewis14. Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Flames Unfiltered can be found on all the major podcast players. Want to watch the show? You got it. Check out Inside Edge Hockey Media Group for every show. Subscribe while you watch. Thanks for listening, watching, and interacting. Enjoy the hockey action.
We call him playoff! Yeah, baby! Playoff! Yeah, baby!
Thanks for tuning in to Flames Unfiltered. Check back for more action-packed Calgary Flames talk. This episode of Flames Unfiltered was copyrighted and produced by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.